Looks like everyone's back. Great. Okay. Welcome. Today is April 27th to the 6 p.m. City Council work session. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. As to the chair's determination, we read that at the beginning of the work session, so that has been read and is on the record. Let us begin first with a Pledge of Allegiance offered by Vice Chair White.
Thank you, Chair Blair. Rise if you are able and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair White. Next, we would ask all those who are with us to join with us in observing a moment of silence. Thank you. First on tonight's agenda, we have a recognition for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we have Councilmember Chaburka, who has agreed to read that for us tonight.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. So this is a proclamation declaring May 2021 Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in Ogden City. Whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have shaped our nation's history and are prominent members of our society. In Ogden, they have enriched our community through their knowledge and talents. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Heritage Month began as a 10-day observance in 1977, in 1992, Congress extended it to a month-long celebration. The month of May was chosen to celebrate the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants to the United States on May 7, 1843, and the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869. Most of the railroad workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. And whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have played a major role in the growth and development of Ogden, their influence and contributions to the community and culture are invaluable. Whereas all too often, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are the target of racism and violence. Ogden City stands in solidarity with Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and strongly condemns racism, xenophobia, bullying, and hatred of any kind. We must work together to foster a community of diversity and inclusivity. Whereas today we honor the legacy and heritage of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is an opportunity for our community to celebrate their history, transitions, and culture. We are forever grateful for their contributions and lasting impact on our community. Now, therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim May 2021 Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in Ogden City. We recognize the profound influence of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and acknowledge the importance of their contributions throughout the greater Ogden community. We express our sincere appreciation to the Weber State University's Center for Multicultural Excellence, the Asian Student Involvement Association, the Ohana Association, and all the others working to highlight and celebrate diversity within the community. This is, passed and adopted this day, 27th day of April 2021. And Chair, I would like to motion to adopt this proclamation.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Vice Chair White to adopt this proclamation declaring May 2021 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. And I believe we have Hopefully I say this correctly. Lulu Leitu here with us tonight. She's the multicultural counselor at WSU's Center for Multicultural Excellence at Weber State. I thought I saw her on there.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm grateful to be with you this evening and to be invited by the Ogden City Council to receive this proclamation. Like Bart Blair had mentioned, my name is Lulu Famulatu Peters. I'm a multicultural retention counselor at WSU in the Center for Multicultural Excellence. And I advise the Student Involvement Association, or better known as Asia, as well as the Ohana Association, or better known as TOA. I'm joined this evening with our student president of Asia, Christian Pomsavan, and student president of TOA, Finau Tautioli. I'm grateful to them for joining me and receiving this great recognition as we commemorate the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants to the U.S. in May 1843, and also as we recognize May, the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad nearly 25 years later. Where 15 to 20,000 Chinese immigrants were a huge integral part in completing this monumentous event. Both of these organizations have contributed and participated and conducted several community and campus events and activities. Asia and TOA provide quality opportunities for academic and extracurricular experiences and promote student involvement in university clubs, organization events, and activities. Again, I'm grateful to Christian and Finau. I do want to give them a few minutes to share some thoughts. Again, thank you, Ogden City Council, for this opportunity, but also most importantly for your commitment to stand in solidarity with Asian American Pacific Islanders against racism and social injustices. Christian?
Thank you, Lulu. Like Lulu said, my name is Christian Pomsavan. I am the student president of the Asian Student Involvement Association. First, I just want to say thank you to Ogden City, the Ogden City Council, and Mayor Caldwell for inviting us, and also for this proclamation, and also the words that you shared, standing in solidarity with the not only the Asian community, but also Asian and Pacific Islanders amongst all of the other ethnic groups here in Utah. I think it's important to recognize, the histories and how they have an interplay and are integrated into not only Utah's history, but America's history too, and how much they've contributed. So yeah, thank you so much. And I'll hand it over to Finau.
Hello, everybody. My name is Finau Tautioli. I'm the president of the Ohana Association at Weber State. I just want to thank you all for the recognition and for this opportunity, and just kind of going off what Lulu and Christian shared too. I was just grateful for the opportunity, really, and there's really no words of what I can say, but we're really grateful. Also, we have a lot of events planned to help carry out for the Pacific Islander, and as well as other events at Weber State. But overall, thank you guys so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Lulu, and thank you for the other two presidents that were here tonight to accept that. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you representing those committees up on Weber State and in our community. So thank you both, or thank you all. Are there any other comments by council members? It looks like Vice Chair White would like to give you all a round of applause. So if there's no other comments, we'll go ahead and thank you all for being here. Okay. Next up are two items listed under common consent: the Ogden City Audit Committee and the fiscal year 2022 annual action plan. And that would be setting the public hearing for May 11th, 2021.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt the common consent agenda and set the public hearing for May 11th on item B.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt the two items listed under common consent and setting the public hearing for May 11th, 2021 on the fiscal year 2022 annual action plan. And a second by Councilmember Stevens. This too, it says roll call vote. Is it a roll? Okay,
Roll call vote because of the resolution.
perfect. Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka. Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski. Councilmember Nadolski.
His mouth is moving, but no sound is coming out.
Yes. He gave a thumbs up. So, Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Next up, we have public hearings. First is the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment for the Swift Site and Weber River environmental remediation. And then we have Lisa Stout and Brandon Cooper here.
Thank you, Chair Blair. In relation to this budget action, there is some environmental remediation information. We'll turn the time over to Brandon Cooper for a presentation from him first, and then we will revisit the budget action before you.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for the time tonight. We have discussed most of this, I believe all of this maybe in a work session or two, and so I'll be brief in the comments, but for the record tonight, I just wanted to establish some context of why the city undertakes brownfields redevelopment in the first place. Again, this is a quick review, so if you have any questions, feel free to stop me or bring them up in the appropriate manner. So brownfields redevelopment really is associated with the 1980s CERCLA Superfund law. And that law essentially established environmental cleanup criteria for property owners who previously, for decades and decades, had used their properties or misused their properties in certain ways. And so that law really called out some of those major grievances and some of those bad actors. But what it also did is it identified a number of contaminated properties within local neighborhoods that didn't necessarily score high enough for the Superfund site under CERCLA, or the Superfund fund. And so they were ineligible to receive federal dollars for cleanup. And so those sites lingered. And in 1990, at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, that group deemed that those environmentally contaminated sites that were too small to fall under Superfund posed one of the most critical problems facing cities across the country. So soon after that, in 1993, the EPA established what we now know as the Brownfields Act. And that's essentially what we operate under as a municipality in terms of looking at sites within our city and assessing them, characterizing them, and determining a course of action for cleanup. And so the technical term for a brownfield is a property whose expansion or redevelopment is complicated by the presence or the potential presence of hazardous materials. And given Ogden's history as an industrial rail city, we have a significant number of those properties throughout the city. In fact, it was estimated to be more than 450,000 across the U.S. last year, over 1 million in 1993 when the program was established. And it's a proven fact that cleaning up these properties at the municipal level can increase local tax base, facilitate the job growth, and utilize the existing infrastructure that exists in a city's boundaries. Let me see if I can make this go down. There we go. So there's a number of steps that make up environmental cleanup, and this is all established under federal law, the Brownfields law, and we've undertaken all of these steps in one way or another as we have endeavored to clean up our community. Inventory is the very first place that we start. We look at what could potentially be impacted or what is known to be impacted across the community. We characterize those impacts through a variety of studies that we use consultants for. Once that characterization and assessment is done, we seek to get community involvement, and usually this comes in the form of redevelopment plans or land use plans, community plans, those kind of things. And then in some cases, and again, the reason why we're bringing this up tonight is because two of the items that are on tonight's agenda, the SWIFT budget amendment and the 4C assignment, both are related to environmental cleanup that we have proactively chosen to pursue based on the Brownfield strategy and based on the program that facilitates and encourages municipalities to take that role. And all of this is done, of course, for the pursuit of redevelopment, getting our buildings back into productive use or redeveloping vacant land into productive use. This slide is actually a two-part slide. On the left, you'll see that there has been a number of awards that Ogden City has received since 1998 and as recent as 2012 from the EPA for active brownfields assessment or cleanup. This is federal dollars that have come to us via a competitive grant award, and we've used those dollars to do the things that were listed on the previous slide, mostly inventory, characterization, and assessment. In 2012, we joined forces with Salt Lake County and the Salt Lake City RDA to build a $1 million revolving loan fund in which we loan and or grant money out to communities and potential eligible recipients to do brownfields cleanup. And that money is in most cases repaid. In fact, Ogden was a recipient of one of those loans and has since been repaid at the Ogden Business Exchange. On the right column is a number of projects that we have undertaken since 2009, not necessarily under the Brownfields program, but potentially so, most likely proactively for the purpose of redevelopment. You may remember the Winco project that had 7 underground leaking storage tanks. That site sat fallow for many, many years with those tanks sitting in the ground leaking and nobody doing anything about it. 2010 came and IRS Phase 3 was presented to us along with Quality Bike Products out on 12th Street. Both of those projects had underground leaking storage tanks. Then in 2016, with the purchase of the Flowers Foods Hostess site, there was some remediation done there with underground tanks. And then again in 2017, as you know, with SWIFT and the asbestos leaking underground storage tanks and the hazardous waste removal done by EPA. So the question is, why don't property owners clean up their own properties? And that's a question that we get as staff, and I'm sure that you get that as council members. It's a very good question. The law is established to promote and in some cases enforce the cleanup of private property by private property owners. But the sad fact is that in a lot of cases, private property owners don't clean up their own property, and they leave it fallow and persistent in such a way that it tends to have a negative impact not only on the economy of the city in a lot of cases, think Winco again, and potentially SWIFT and other things, but also to the public health and safety of the community. And so that's why the Brownfields program was established in the first place. The Brownfields program is directly associated with municipalities and governments. and tribal organizations. It's meant to funnel money, not through Superfund, but other federal money to these local governments to deal with the issue of contamination in their community when local property owners aren't doing it themselves. And so it's been productive for us. You can see all of the projects on this slide that would not have taken place had environmental remediation not been conducted, and or would have been delayed had we waited for private property owners to conduct that cleanup. And so I'm very proud of the work that's been done over the last couple of decades. I mentioned before that Janine was really the initiator of our first grant in 1998. And so we've tried to build on that. And I think we've done a fabulous job in cleaning up those properties where it made sense. Also inventorying and assessing other properties where we then could work with private property owners to clean up. Those have happened on a number of occasions. But sadly, there are still more properties in the city that are known areas of contamination, and or the lack of motivation by the property owner sit vacant and sit underutilized and dirty. And so we hope to continue to identify and inventory those properties, work with private property owners and developers to clean up those areas, and continue to make our city a safe and productive place to be. So with that, I'll leave you with any questions, and if not, I'll turn the time back over to Lisa to talk about the budget opening.
Any questions for Brandon? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is that showing up okay for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon. And as you saw, one of the sites that Brandon mentioned that the city has done a lot of remediation on is the Swift building site. Here's an old picture of the site. It looks much different today. Just a quick history about the budget for the Swift site. In fiscal year 2018, calendar year 2017, the city appropriated $2.2 million. And then in fiscal year 2020, last year, an additional $812,000 were appropriated. The total budget for the Swift purchase and remediation and demolition and all the work that's been done in that area is just over $3 million. Currently, after the property purchase and the site work that has been invested in the area, there is an available budget of $133,859 remaining in this project. And the site work that the city has done, just to note, Brandon mentioned the EPA had been out there in his slide doing site work. None of the costs that the city has actually spent relate to any work the EPA has done. That was all done directly by the EPA. The proposed budget request before you this evening relates to the Ogden city budget. It is to appropriate $1.3 million out of BDO lease revenue fund balance as a transfer to the redevelopment agency. And in the RDA meeting later this evening, you will be asked to consider an appropriation into the redevelopment agency for the Swift area. So with the additional budget opening of $1.3 million, that would make a total budget of $4.3 million for the Swift area. The expenditures that are estimated going forward are an additional $1.4 million. After that $1.4 million is spent, the available budget in the Swift area would be just under $25,000. And the $1.4 million that they're estimating needs to be spent will go towards additional environmental site work, including subsurface sampling, site characterization, tarping, river excavation, and buried asbestos remediation. And I just want to note that additional expenditures are likely beyond this appropriation as the city participates in the State of Utah Voluntary Cleanup Program. To comply with those requirements, it's likely additional appropriations will be needed for the SWIFT site. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Okay, any questions for Lisa or for Brandon? Seeing none. Before we open it up for the public hearing, just to note, Councilmember Nadolski has asked to be excused from this due to a conflict of interest with his job. So he will not be participating in the vote for this, and he has taken himself off of this part of the discussion. So if there's no further discussion or further questions, we will go ahead and open it up for the public hearing. If we could have Brandon explain how those attendees could participate in this.
Thank you, Chair. To participate using the raise hand feature found at the bottom of your application.
Okay. So we will now open the public hearing. We have Heath Sato with his hand raised. Go ahead, Heath. The time is now yours.
Hey, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I'm glad to see that the Swift site and 4C property are being cleaned up. It's great that we're dealing with saving the environment from toxic pollutants, but I'm also a little disturbed to see that we so readily take on all the expenses of cleaning up after private businesses that profited from harming the environment, particularly sites like the Swift building, where a well-connected local wealthy family had a massive cost burden removed from them by Ogden's taxpayers as soon as the patriarch of the family passed on. Anyways, that's what I have to say about that.
Okay.
Chair, seeing no more hands, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Lopez. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Is there any further discussion on this item? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Just one comment, Chair. Maybe Brandon could review this, but even though we're moving forward on removing the toxic waste, but that doesn't actually totally dissolve the property owners of handling that situation. I believe EPA continues to look at the situation, and if possible, there are some opportunities of recouping some of the cost. And maybe Brandon could review that.
That's partially correct. The EPA will pursue all responsible parties for cost recovery for the expenditures that they incurred, meaning that there is a possibility that the EPA bill will be offset by multiple parties paying into that. And so the idea that the entities that were responsible for the pollution will get off scot-free is just not true. The monies that we're expending for demolition and additional cleanup, as Lisa has described, those monies are not eligible for reimbursement.
Thanks for clarifying that, Brandon.
Are you ready for a motion, Chair?
I am.
Then I will make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2021-18.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-18 and a second by Vice Chair White. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you. And next we have the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment for the 4C property purchase. And again, we have Lisa Stout and Brandon Cooper here tonight to present.
I think Lisa is talking, but she's on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. The ordinance before you is a request to appropriate funds from BDO lease revenue fund balance in the amount of $600,000 to transfer to the redevelopment agency. Work session discussing the 4C property with you, the location and then the work that has been done at the 4C property. If this appropriation is approved by council, the RDA board will later consider a resolution to recognize the transfer in from the city to appropriate $445,000 to the purchase of the 4C property, and then $155,000 would go into that area for development costs. These funds will be appropriated in the redevelopment agency housing fund. Since there is no area at this time, that is where we're accounting for these expenses. Thank you.
Okay. And nothing more from you, Brandon?
No, I covered some things relative to this in the work session, and I have a full presentation on the 4C assignment in the redevelopment agency meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. If there's not any further discussion. Okay, if there's not any further discussion or questions, we can go ahead and open the public hearing on this item. I don't see any hands raised for this one.
Chair Blair, I'll make the motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Any discussion or questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Chair, I've got one question.
Okay.
I was just wondering, we did discuss the additional environmental findings in our work session. I'm just curious if legal could give us their take on the liability and responsibility protections that are in place.
I'm not sure who's.
Gary is here.
I only see Gary.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am here, but I did not see the presentation. I was in a mediation at the same time, and so I'm sorry I can't report to you on that.
Maybe we could just ask you then, Gary, you have looked at the liability that the city is potentially under on the 4C property purchase. Are we pretty well exonerated from liability from that?
We are never exonerated from liability. What we've done is we've tried to reduce our chances of having liability, but there still can be a liability on behalf of the city.
Any other comments? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
I have a comment. I guess that right before Councilmember Nadolski asked that question, I was going to make a comment that I was really happy that we had that in place to help protect us. But I guess I wasn't the assumption we were pretty much covered. I know that we can't really say with 100% certainty that we're covered, but is there like a percentage of surety that we have, or I just have to go with what I read?
Well, Brandon, why don't you turn your microphone on? As I understand it, we're going to get a letter from the EPA or the state agency. Is that correct on this one?
Yes, that was presented in the work session.
Right. To reduce our liability on that. We're taking the right path.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
You ready for a motion, Chair?
Please.
I'd make a motion then that we adopt ordinance 2021-19.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Meyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-19 and a second by Councilmember Stevens. This too is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski,
No.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. That passes. Thank you. Councilmember Nadolski, would you like an opportunity to explain your no vote?
Sure. I'm 100% supportive of the project. I've been supportive of all the past motions. I just haven't been comfortable with the environmental contamination elements of this. And I think I'm just not quite comfortable with the answers we got from legal is all. So it created some reservation in me that tilted me to the no tonight, but that's in no way means that I'm not supportive of the project as a whole. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have some unfinished business. First is the Business Depot Ogden Lease Revenue Ordinance Amendments, and this is continued from April 13th, 2021. And tonight we have Glenn Symes here to present to us.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be doing a full presentation since we've had a couple of work sessions on that. And then again, as you mentioned, the full presentation on April 13th. But I will just quickly say that the amendments do address the BDO lease revenue ordinance, directing $1 million for funding for both Marshall White Center and Quality Neighborhoods Initiative as it's proposed over a 5-year period. And the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative was approved by the council on April 13th, but this item was tabled to allow the proposal to be split so you could take separate or different motions, make different motions. So last week we did talk to the council about how you all wanted to do that. The way we've got it presented here is how is what you told us you wanted to do. And so with that, we've got three options for the one ordinance. We talked a little bit about this in the work session as well. So I'm going to share a screen that outlines those three options. So again, it's one ordinance and three options. So option A would be to do both, approve both. And then option B would be to approve funding for just Marshall White. And then option C would be to approve funding just for quality neighborhoods. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. We do have on your agenda council deliberations. So this would be a time for you all to have any discussion that you might want to have.
Thank you. Yeah, I would now open it up for council deliberation or any other further comments.
Chair, I have a proposal. I in as much as we've had that discussion in our work session that Councilmember Chaburka had concerns about the way this was laid out. I kind of think that maybe we ought to get a motion together for option A, and that will let everybody vote whichever way they want to do. They can vote no if they don't want it all, and that way we can then have opportunity to explain our no votes. But it may pass even at that, but we could still have an opportunity to explain our no vote. And that might be the best approach to take that one first, just to see what happens.
I would agree with that. Is there any other comments from other council members?
Chair, I was just going to make a comment that, I didn't vote. I guess it was last week. I'm sorry, my weeks are all running together. Whenever the vote was about the Quality Neighborhoods program, I initially voted no on that initiative, due to my concerns of not having explicit language in the plan to address some of those alternative ideas that we brought up over a period of time. And so I appreciated so much, Ward adjusting his presentation in the past to address some of my concerns. And then again, Brandon Cooper discussing a couple of those elements earlier today. So I was just going to say that I don't feel as strongly about having to have a separate vote as I did before. So I would go along with option A.
Thank you for that. Any other comments from council members? If not, we can proceed with a motion.
Yeah, and this is not exactly directly related to any of the options. I have my only concern with the Marshall White Center and putting money towards the Marshall White Center is that we don't know. We haven't had a survey back. We haven't seen any results. We haven't seen anything. So can somebody explain to me, if the Marshall White Center doesn't happen and we're continuing to put this money away, where and what it can be used for in the future if it is not used for the Marshall White Center? And I'm not saying that I'm for or against it. I'm just trying to figure out where it's at, like what happens.
Vice Chair White, that's exactly my concern with that money too, is it's so ambiguous. I think it creates expectations that very likely won't be realized as people are expecting them, because we just haven't given enough information.
Yeah, I'm not even asking, you've gone further than I have. I just don't even know. I haven't seen survey results. I haven't seen anything about what the community what the community wants. So I'm just asking the question, if we allocate that money, where does it go? And if it's not used for the Marshall White Center, because I know that the ordinance was changed. So maybe Janine or Glenn can answer that question.
Yeah, I'm happy to start, and if other people want to add on or correct me, then they're certainly welcome to do so. So this money would just set aside the $1 million per year, basically in preparation for a project. The current CIP project that applies to Marshall White doesn't include anything that could be done with this money. So a new CIP project would have to be done to use this money. And so it would just be set aside for now. And if the council decides to do something else with that money, it would be the council that would decide how to reappropriate that money.
So Glenn, on this new CIP, would that put some guidelines in the use of that money? Maybe that is what we're looking for as a council, is to have some direction of what.
Yeah, it definitely would. So as I mentioned, this is just setting aside the money for now. A CIP project brief would have to be developed and approved by the council before this funding could be spent. So you would see what the proposal is, what the scope of the project is before this money was actually spent on any kind of a new project. So all of this information, all the information gathering that's taking place would help inform whatever project would be written in the future.
Right. So it's not an open-end question on that one, use of the money.
Right.
Okay.
Chair, if I may?
Yes, please.
I think what it also does, though, I mean, if at the end of the process, if we're not happy with what the outcome is, and it's going to take a lot more than whatever we're able to set aside probably in order to make that project complete anyway. And we have multiple ways that we can weigh in. The money would just stay in fund balance, I'm sure, and we would have to reappropriate somehow through another budget opening and potentially another ordinance amendment. But in the meantime, I think it does send a message to the community that we are willing to invest in the Marshall White Center in some important way, and that investment would be in response to the feedback that we get from the community and those members of our community who use the Marshall White Center.
Thank you. All good points. Councilmember White, did that answer your questions, or do you want somebody from, I don't know who else we have. Looks like we have.
No, that answered my question. I was just with Quality Neighborhoods, we get updates on a regular basis of how we're spending that money or what we're doing. And I don't know that would be the same, but maybe through the CIP process. And then, I mean, we just don't need, it isn't about, it could be 4th Street Ballpark for all I care at this point. Where does that money go is what I'm asking. So that answered my questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I think we could get updates just like we do with the Quality Neighborhoods. Is that possible, Janine, to get updates on the possible use of that money?
So right now, it can't be expended. And so it can't be expended until a CIP project is approved. And then the updates would come with the quarterly CIP reports that you get.
Here, Blair, I'm happy to try that motion if you'd entertain it.
That would be great. Thank you.
Then I would make a motion that we adopt Ordinance 2021-20, option A.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Meyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-20 with option A. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
No.
Councilmember Lopez.
No.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Would Councilmember Heyer or Councilmember Lopez like the opportunity to explain their no vote?
You want to go, Councilmember Lopez?
Go ahead.
my concern is kind of what I stated along the lines of Councilmember White's, Vice Chair White's, that money. I saw the survey, and I think the survey, it kind of asked, as I went through that, what kind of a recreation center do you want? And I think that has made a lot of assumptions that to even start the survey that I don't think were realistic. I think that, that kind of a thing is going to end up being a bond anyway. And so I just kind of felt like I was just really uneasy by the expectations that this would set by voting, for this. It's, I think it's going to, there are some members of the community that are going to expect a certain thing that may or may not end up being the case. The other thing I had that I also brought up in the work session weeks ago was the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. While I am very supportive of that and its goals and what it's accomplished in the past, it still is difficult. I've had some offline conversations with Brandon and Tom, and we've just got a lot of need around the city. And I think we need to make sure that we can expand our focus into those other areas as well. And that was, I am very in favor of the Quality Neighbors Initiative. I would not have voted against it anyway, but I do remain having that concern.
Thank you.
I agree with the second part of Councilmember Heyer's reason as far as expanding the focus, focus area. And I also have concerns, as I expressed in the past. I know that Tom said that, and Brandon, that they're looking at options for affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing, I like to qualify it by saying, I mean new, new, not substandard, existing affordable housing. I know that we have plenty of stock of that, more than our share. And I also believe that the administration, I give him credit for all the good work that's happening. But moving forward, I would really like to see some kind of a balance with new housing projects for upper level incomes, with housing projects for middle level incomes. As I've said in the past, I would love my kids to find a place to live in Ogden, and the way housing is right now, they probably won't be able to do that. So those are my reasons. Thank you.
Thank you both.
May I make a comment, Chair?
Yes, please.
And I just wanted to reiterate, that I had reservations much like yours, Councilmember Lopez, and just because I voted to support this at this time doesn't mean I won't continue pushing to have those conversations. And perhaps we need to fill out an initiative form or something so that we can, do the formal process. So I'd be happy to work on that with you.
Chair, can
I would love that. Thank you.
Yes, please.
I have to admit that I think my thought process is probably along the lines of where Councilmember Chaburka was. I did wrestle with it a little bit, not because I don't believe in the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. It's just that I also believe in the affordability issues, and I definitely considered not supporting it, but because I wanted to see some of the same things that Councilmember Lopez mentioned, but I ultimately decided to support it because I do believe in it, and I didn't want to I didn't want to hold hostage the good that can and has come from Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. But I do hope that we take our affordability issues more seriously. It's something that we've talked about at great length, and we've always said that we care about it. And I just don't know that we have ever taken it to the point where we have taken real action on it. So,
thank you.
So, Chair, I just have to say something too. I just want to say that, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when we were talking about this, the Quality Neighborhood Initiative, and it was a reach to put $1 million away every year for the last 5 years, just to help a certain area of town. And one of the things, there's a great study out of Georgia, and it's called, I think, Lakeview, and I'm probably getting it totally wrong, but I think it's Lakeview, and that they built this community around the same things that we are doing. And I think if you remember back, for those of us that were on the council, one of the things that Tom said is we have to continue to do it with speed and amplitude. And I think that I've been hesitant just because, that's a lot of money every year to put away and to put aside. But I feel like we're starting to see some of the benefits of that. The Newbridge School, the way that they're graduating, the kids. I mean, I think there's some things that it's not just housing that goes along with it. It's building a community. And I think one of the things that we forget sometimes is we get so focused on maybe just affordable housing. And in reality, Quality Neighborhoods is actually building a community, a really nice community. We could not even get the lowest of low, I'm not going to say it that way. We couldn't even get a grocery store to come in because we didn't have an income that would sustain that when we drew the circle. And we now have the potential to do that. And I think one of the things that we forget is that it's building a community. It's building a way for people to move around, to have open space, to go to parks, to be safe, to do all of those things. And that will eventually, we said it then, and I'll say it again, but a rising tide lifts all boats. And I know that we are ignoring other parts of the community. I know that we're doing that. But if we don't do that, then we won't have the ability to sustain the rest of the city. And so the Quality Neighborhoods has to do with building a community, and we're not there yet. And we just need to continue to push forward, and we need to ask the questions. And I don't disagree that we are asking those questions, but we just need to keep pushing forward with what we're doing in that area. So that was the reason I voted yes, just FYI.
Thank you. If there's no other comments from council members, I don't see any. We'll go ahead and move on with public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council. This is the opportunity to address the council regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. The council encourages civil discourse for everyone who participates in our meetings. Just a couple points. Questions posed during public comment will be noted and answered at the end of all public comments. If the council has the answers to the questions, the council will respond to those questions. For questions that relate to administrative matters, the mayor may choose to respond to those during his comment period. Questions for the council or the administration can always be sent to citycouncil@ogdencity.com. We've had Brandon explain how to do that already. So with that, we'll go ahead. I see a couple hands raised already, so we'll go ahead and move into public comment. First up is Mark Stevenson. Go ahead, Mark. The time is now yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for taking my question. I was just listening in on your work meeting before this meeting, and I was really pleased to hear that city council members are keeping an open mind about the Ogden's participation in the community renewable energy program. And one of the things that I I understand is that there's a lot of questions that the city council members have about the details of the program, how it's supposed to work, and of course, what the final utility rates will look like. And on the other hand, I heard folks from city administration saying that they struggle because they don't have the bandwidth or the personnel or expertise necessarily in-house to keep on top of that process as it unfolds. So my question to you is, you have the, if I'm getting the name right, the Natural Resources and Sustainability Committee, is that correct? So if you have that committee, are you using them to attend these meetings, do a deep dive into some of the details, invite experts, and have them report directly back to the city council to help you all keep up with the details of this program? I don't know if that's happening, but if it is not happening, then I'd like to know if you have any plans to take advantage of this committee where you have, quite a few dedicated volunteers who have some expertise in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have, looks like Joanne Lawrence. Go ahead, Joanne. The time is now yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you for supporting the Marshall White Center. And I hope you will make sure when the time comes that the money will be applied to its development and not just frittered away on day-to-day operations. I trust you will oversee that when the CIPs come through. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Linda. Go ahead, Linda. The time is now yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I also am very pleased that the City Council in your work session has at least decided to continue on with Ogden's involvement with the CREA program for 100% sustainable electricity. The 100, Utah 100 and Ogden 100 doesn't mean 100 communities. It actually refers to the 100% renewable electricity that we want to see Ogden have by 2030. There are a couple of things that I want to respond to from your work session. The fact that only a couple of municipalities have, in quotes, signed on to this is kind of like cities already did sign on, as did Ogden, when this council approved the resolution in 2019. So everybody's kind of in this process. Nobody is officially pulled out of it. And of course, as you know, there are new timelines with deadlines coming up to meet. So I hope that you continue to get your questions answered. I also hope that on the Utah 100 website, you put Ogden City on there so that people can know that we are in this process and we are making a good faith effort to find out how it's going to affect our city. As you also know, your own sustainability committee unanimously put forward that proposition to the city council. So they're on board with that, of course. And if you need any help with technical issues, there are people at Weber State. There are also people in Salt Lake City Salt Lake City has its own sustainability manager who has all the details you will ever want to know for any of your questions. So please reach out. And if you need any help, do let us know, our citizen committee that's working on this. And I hope that you just continue to go on this path, because the sustainability effort and the benefit we'll get from this program far outweighs anything that is on the table right now, whatever the mayor might be considering. And the other thing is the cost of this program. There's Weber State has made some comments that they will help with that. So anyway, please reach out. All the help you need is there. We hope to see you finalize this. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, can we just get you to state your full name for the record?
I think I know Linda if she's off now.
Hi, I just saw I was muted again. Linda Zeveloff.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Looks like next up we have Trevor Jones. Go ahead, Trevor. The time is now yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. I am also speaking for the HB 411 CREA. And when I noticed that your work session included the Weber State Net Zero Home Program, it got me thinking and trying to think of an apples to apples comparison I could do between these two programs. If any of you are interested, I can go ahead and send you the Excel spreadsheet with my sources and my assumptions and so on. But I wanted to ask myself, how many net zero houses would it take to equal the carbon emissions that we would get from Ogden being part of the CREA? And according to some statistics I found from the Ogden City website, the EPA.gov, and I think what's a reasonable assumption for the opt-in rate, the staying in the CREA is equivalent to 17,330 net homes, which I figured that number would likely be high. I did not expect to see it that high, but it underscores to me the very high level of importance that we have to be involved in the CREA program. It really dwarfs anything else that we could be doing right now. And I understand, I'm all for net zero homes as well. I completely agree with it. But if the goal is to reduce carbon, if the goal is to tackle climate change head on, then the CREA is head and shoulders above other projects and other things in consideration. And so again, as the other participants have said, we're all rooting for it. We're all very, very happy to hear that you're still considering being in it, and I would like to add my voice to the voice of so many others. I do understand that there are concerns and there are issues with lack of information, and it's a tough nut to crack. It's very much a chicken or the egg type of situation, because we need to know who's going to be in before we know what the price will be. But without knowing what the price will be, it's hard to know who wants to be in. And so it's hard, but there are a lot of people who are good faith efforts and working really, really hard to try to make it happen to the benefit of all people. Really quickly, I'd like to add, I think that if you reach out to the quote unquote lower class or the people who might be hit a little bit more with these premiums, you may see that they are more receptive to it than you would have expected, because they understand what we will be living through in climate change. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your work on behalf of all of us here in the city of Ogden. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Catherine Meyer. Go ahead, Catherine. The time is now yours.
Hi, thank you. So I am a graduating student at Weber State University, and I also wanted to speak in support of the Community Renewable Energy Act. And to say that I wasn't able to attend your work session, but I know that every city is unique in kind of the energy plans that are being put forth right now. And that's why sticking with this is the only way to really answer your questions. I also was able to attend the Utah Association of Energy Users Conference, where professionals discussed energy issues in Utah. And The main takeaway that I got from this was that renewable energy and electrification is being discussed at the highest level as more of an inevitability than just a possibility or a nice thing to do. And I think that this Renewable Energy Act really helps prepare Ogden for the economic growth and demand that is associated with these fields, and helps prepare us to really take that on and not be so surprised by it when it does come. So there are difficulties associated with an energy transition, but as many have said before me, there are also a multitude of energy and sustainability experts dedicated to helping Ogden achieve a balance of environmental, social, and economics. So that's really all I have to say about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Next up, we have Jeremy Shinoda. Go ahead, Jeremy. The time is now yours.
Hi, Jeremy Shinoda, Ogden resident. Regarding the Community Renewable Energy Act, I'm really excited about a goal of achieving an amount equivalent to 100% of the annual electric energy supply for participating customers for renewable energy resources by 2030. I think it fits the vision that I have for Ogden in the future. I think that, by continuing to participate, really what I want is the choice to be able to choose, once I see what it will cost to be participating in it versus non-participating, by continuing with this, I will have the choice to go forward or not. And, that's all this has given you, is the choice, the opportunity to choose between participating and not. No less, people, our citizens and businesses will be notified no less than twice within the 60 days immediately preceding the date required to opt out. And that notification comes separately from the customer's monthly billing. And if a customer wants to participate later after the opt-out, they can. So I just encourage you to continue to attend these open houses and information sessions put on by the Utah 100 communities. And please add Ogden's name to the utah100communities.org/team webpage. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, next we have Adam Toby. Go ahead, Adam. The time is now yours.
Hi, thank you. My name's Adam Toby. I'm a citizen of Ogden. And yeah, I would just also like to be another voice in the mix, encouraging City Council. I attended some of the here that City Council is maintaining an open mind when it comes to the CREA, and just encouraging that continued open mind. Also, for any questions, I would look, someone else mentioned this as well. If there's any questions concerning this that were maybe not answered or that come up later that were not answered in the work session, I would also just be another voice that asks the City Council to utilize the resources that they have available to them, namely the Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee, with any specific questions, and all of the other resources that have already been named with our partners at Weber State, et cetera. So thank you for keeping this on the table and keeping the discussion going. And I look forward to, and I also would ask that you would support this and move forward with it as a city. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Next, Next, we have David Timmerman. Go ahead, David. The time is now yours.
Hi, David Timmerman, Ogden City resident, and thanks for letting me drone on again about this. I really do appreciate all the work you guys do, and I know it is important to the residents, and myself included. In what we do, I just think it's fantastic that we have this opportunity. I hope that we stay the course, as George Bush said once, and continue to work to clear the air. There's certain things we cannot live without, and that is air, clean water, and food. And these things are important, and we should do the best we can to try to mitigate the problems that we're facing now and do everything we can to make Ogden shine. And I do think this is truly an opportunity for our community. We can shine. We can show other communities the way forward. And I think the risk reward, I don't think the risk is as high, but I think the reward truly outweighs any of the risk. So please continue to support this, and thank you so much for all you do. Have a good night.
Thank you, David. Okay, next up we have Heath Sato. Go ahead, Heath, the time is now yours.
Heath Sato, Ogden resident. Hi, everybody. I listened in on the work session today, and I was reminded about how we've had so many meetings and reviews, et cetera, for the honorary renaming of a block or two of street. Multiple committees involved, many meetings, and a lot of meaningful debate. And I'm glad to see this. It's a good thing to debate and discuss changes to our city, no matter how small. And yet 2 entire city blocks are being developed as we speak, and there were no public meetings about how a single developer was chosen to develop both blocks, by far the largest developments in our city. As I mentioned before, the mayor likes to repeat over and over, the city is built out. But if that's the case, why are developments of entire city blocks, where the city is giving great incentives to developers, being decided by just a few people behind closed doors? Is our remaining space in the city not more worthy of public debate and discussion than an honorary street name? We all know the phrase that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we know the warning that power corrupts. Our current system allows for absolute power behind closed doors to select developers that will get significant incentives, creating $100 million plus developments with no sunlight on that process. No real oversight, incredible power. And as we've seen with the Brown ice cream building development process, there's absolutely no accountability. I would have a problem with the system that is ripe for corruption, even if I fully trusted everyone involved. But I will again remind you about the questions that I've asked and that the mayor has chosen to lie about already being answered. They have not been answered. Where is the accountability? Brandon Cooper stood in front of all of you and told you to your faces that the Brown ice cream building was being marketed on LoopNet and presumably the MLS when you asked him how the building was being marketed. You guys asked him that question. The administration cannot or will not provide any evidence of this building ever being listed or marketed by the broker they were working with. It appears the building was never listed anywhere. If a building's listed, that listing is available in perpetuity. The city needs to provide these listings or publicly admit they misinformed the RDA. As far as we can do, someone the mayor knows personally, and then the broker underestimated the value by over half. An estimate that was presented to you all in every presentation you were given about that project. So we were left with this. Either the broker lied to Brandon Cooper about the marketing and value of that building, or Brandon Cooper knowingly misinformed the RDA. Is anyone concerned about this? Is there any accountability for misleading the RDA? Is anyone looking into this? Members of the council, if you won't or can't hold the administration accountable for misleading you, at least push forward a new process that won't allow this misinformation at all. We need a public bidding system that shines light on the entire process. No more behind closed doors deals that are wide open for all sorts of corruption. Our city deserves that. Thank you.
Thank you, Heath. Okay, next up we have Bonnie. Please state your full name for the record, Bonnie, and then the time is yours.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Christiansen, and I am also a city member here in Ogden. And I was just calling to kind of support the idea that the city should reach out to the Ogden Natural Resources and Sustainability Stewardship Committee to get answers that they may have about the CREA Act or the Community Renewable Energy Act. I know that there's some people on there. I happen to serve on there, but that's not how I'm talking. I'm just talking as an individual now. But I know that there's people that have been looking into this and have a great deal of information. And I'll hope that you as a council and as an administration would choose to reach out to those folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have Angel Castilla. Go ahead, Angel. The time is yours.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden City residents. I would also like to thank the council for their comments during the work session. And I'd all strongly advise you to follow Councilman Heyer's lead to seek information outside of the meetings. You're not going to learn everything you need to know about signing on to sustainability and what happens in a meeting. And you have a plethora of experts that are willing and able to assist you through either Weber or the Sustainability Committee. So please, we need to make sure that we are making fully formed decisions. And I wanted to talk about something in the business world that's called OKRs, which are objective key results. And signing on to this is exactly what you need to do to follow that OKR theory. Objectives are significant, concrete, and action-oriented, and key results benchmark and monitor how we get to that objective. And that's exactly what this sustainable energy bill is, and participating in it. Either you want to be measured and marked for making a difference, or you are unwilling to put into the effort. And I don't understand how any of you wouldn't be for clean air for your kids, your grandkids, and your other relatives. With regards to the Quality Neighborhoods program, I am all about the Quality Neighborhoods program. We've done some amazing work with OWN and Ogden and the micro enterprise loan and the small business loan, and the BIC is just a shining star. Overall, it's a great package. But again, coming back to OKRs, if we don't have a plan for how we're going to provide the housing that we're saying that we are going to build. I mean, you're on the hook already for 3 more houses that are going to be exactly what you've built, that are going to be 400,000 and over. And I think I would recommend that you consider at least holding back a portion of money going specifically for the Quality Neighborhoods program in developing houses until there's a concrete plan. In business, that's called leverage. I understand that, and I appreciate that Brandon said that nothing precludes us from changes. But if you don't have any leverage, what guarantee are you going to have to make those changes, to change the code to accommodate that, to listen to the public and have a plan, an actual plan of how you're going to provide that housing? And with regards to the Marshall White Center, I appreciate you committing to that, because it's what you've been saying for the last 3 years, that you believe in this center. And Marcia said that Quality Neighborhoods is building a community. Well, the Marshall White Center is part of a community and provides a place for kids and adults to become a tighter community. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. I believe that's the end of public comment. Next up, we will go ahead and go to comments from the mayor or administration.
Mayor, you're muted.
Isn't that the statement of the year?
I apologize. So I wrote down every comment that was made, and we're looking into all of that. And I want to reassure everybody that we're looking at House Bill 411, and we're studying it, and our engineers and our smartest minds are looking at that and trying to figure out how that works. It's a big, open public process, and we appreciate all of those that got on tonight and talked about that. I feel personally responsible for some of that. That's why we're building this bus rapid transit system, and why I rode my bike to work every day for a year to help push some of those cleaner initiatives and everything else. I totally believe in it. And I think it's an important thing for a built out community to do. So I appreciate that. I've taken those comments to heart, and we'll continue to work on that. That's my promise. Want to say a couple of quick things, and then I'll let it go to council comments, but want to appreciate all of you that came down to the Utah League of Cities and Towns Conference. These are the issues we talk about and debate there. And we had 490 people down there that were in all levels of state leadership to talk about these things. Any accusations that we're not taking these seriously is not accurate at all, because we have been doing that and we will continue to do that. And I've appreciated the leadership from the Utah League of Cities and Towns and the Wasatch Front Regional Council as we look at these things, because it is all of us coming together. It's not just one city. We don't have boundaries when you look at how we live and how we move around and how we interact with each other and where our jobs are, where our opportunities are. And I've appreciated that dialogue and the leadership on the state level. So thank you for those that came down and participated in that and were engaged in that process. It was a great thing. I also want to say thank you to Weber State. They had a great season. If I can just say that, they lost on Saturday, but outright winners for the... Doug, do you have anything to say about that?
Mayor, you should put yourself on mute.
No, I won't. But I really, they did have a great season. I saw Jay Hill was recognized as potentially the coach of the year for the Big Sky Conference. That's really cool. And then we'll go through all the comments that were made. As I mentioned, we wrote them all down. We'll go and continue to work on those. And we appreciate everybody that's been willing to participate in this process. And we thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Any comments from council members?
Chair?
Make a comment when you have a chance.
Take just a few minutes. I'd like to congratulate the mayor at the convention that we went to in St. George. It was very informative, creative, and we shared a lot of ideas that we could take back to our communities. And I think that's the essence of the organizations of Utah town and cities in going forward. Mayor, you did a great job, and we appreciate your leadership. He was the president of there, and he let the other communities know, and they saw the type of qualities that we have up here in Ogden. The other aspect is that I was listening and watching Weber State, and for the first quarter we were doing just fine, but after that something happened, and we lost our momentum. The other aspect is that I'd like to mention, and I've mentioned several times, and as I was listening to my fellow council members, is that we need to go ahead and maybe develop a housing, exactly what inventories we have and how to manage those. And we need to work very closely, not only with council members and council staff, but also to the administration to develop that type of a situation. My last comment is that I'd like to congratulate Dr. Rich Nye. He was just promoted to, he'll take over the superintendent of the Granite School District. I'd like to thank him for his contribution to the Ogden district. I think he has set a footprint for the future for Ogden City schools. He has developed the buildings that needed to be developed, and that's going to pay dividends and give advantages to and opportunities to our students that are attending here in the Ogden School District. And I'd just like to thank him publicly for the work that he has contributed to our community. You've done something that is going to go on for generations upon generations, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Stevens. Councilmember Nadolski, I believe you had something.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just I want to congratulate Captain Subi, now Deputy Chief Subi, on his promotion. I've always been really impressed with Officer Subi, then Sergeant Subi, Lieutenant Subi, Captain Subi, now Deputy Chief Subi. I think that from what I know, he is a good complement in his leadership skills and abilities to our chiefs, and it sounds like it was a fair and very competitive process, and a good man came out on top. So just wanted to congratulate the chief for making a good decision there, and congratulate Deputy Chief Subi.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Nadolski and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes, but don't go anywhere. We have more meetings. So we'll wait for the recorder and start another one.
Chair Blair, recorders are ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Special Redevelopment Agency meeting for Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present. First off is a reference to the chair's determination. We read that in the work session, so that has been taken care of. So we will just move on to the public hearings. First up is the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment for the Swift site, Weber River Environmental Remediation. And we have Lisa Stout and Brandon Cooper here tonight to present.
Chair, before that we start that item, I just want to remind the council and those watching that I'll be recusing myself from this item. There's consistent with my conflict of interest commitments at my day job at the Division of Wildlife Resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to discuss the resolution before you this evening. This is a budget request to appropriate money from a transfer from Ogden City into the redevelopment agency for additional work at the Swift building site. A brief review of the history of this project. To date, the City and Redevelopment Agency has appropriated a total of over $3 million to this project, of which $2.8 million has been spent on the property purchase and improvements at the asbestos environmental work, and then other costs such as security, and hauling. The City Council has already appropriated $1.3 million of BDO lease revenue to be transferred to the redevelopment agency. The request before the RDA board this evening is to appropriate through resolution that transfer from Ogden City into the redevelopment agency for environmental site work at the Swift building area. This will be appropriated into the into the track line area. We're estimating the estimate on the additional work planned at this time is $1.4 million. After this appropriation, the total budget for the Swift area will be $4.3 million. And with the work already completed and the additional $1.4 million in estimated costs, the total project expenditures will be just under $4.3 million. This would leave an available budget in this project of just under $25,000. The planned work with the $1.4 million estimate includes environmental site work, subsurface sampling and site characterization, tarping, river excavation, and buried asbestos remediation. We are participating as a state of Utah voluntary cleanup program. So as additional needs happen for the city and the redevelopment agency to comply with this ongoing monitoring, it is likely the RDA will need to appropriate additional funds to this project. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Lisa. Brandon, did you have anything for this one?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will go ahead and have Brandon go ahead and explain how that process works, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair. To participate in this public hearing, you need to be joining the meeting via Zoom and by using the raise hand feature found at the bottom of your application. Just press the raise hand feature and we'll be notified on our end, and then Chair Blair will call on you from there.
Great, thank you. Okay. First up, we have Heath Sato. Just 1 second and he'll get that going for you.
Good.
Go ahead, Heath, the time is yours.
Okay, thanks. Just real quick, some of the Heath Sato, Ogden resident, some of the responses to me tonight about the Swift building were slightly misleading about the EPA situation. We as a city took on the full risk, leaving us on the hook if the EPA doesn't go after or can't go after the family that created this disaster. A disaster we frankly had a good idea about since the fire chief a decade ago said the place was too dangerous to even fight a fire there. Where was the urgency back then? And I wonder if we'll be left on the hook because this is a disaster the city was partly aware of for years. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Let me see. I don't see any other comment on this item.
A motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Chaburka to close the public comment and a second by Board Member Stevens. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any further deliberation or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion then that we adopt resolution 2021-3.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Meyer to adopt proposed resolution 2021-3 and a second by Vice Chair White. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Chaburka,
Aye.
Board Member Lopez,
Aye.
Board Member Stevens,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Next up, we have the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment for the 4C property purchase. And I believe we have Brandon Cooper here for this one.
Actually, I believe Lisa will take it away on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
You'll get an opportunity to hear from Brandon a little later on the purchase assignment, the real estate purchase assignment for this property. However, this is the budget resolution for the board to consider to adopt a transfer in from the city in the amount of $600,000. This was approved earlier this evening by the city council for the purchase at 856 25th Street at the property known as 4C Laundry. So the action before the board this evening is to appropriate that transfer in of $600,000. $445,000 would be used towards the purchase of the property, which Brandon will be talking about the real estate purchase later with the board, and you'll have an opportunity to act on that resolution as well, authorizing that purchase. And then the remaining funds, $155,000, would go into the housing fund as well and be used for pre-development costs at the Rite Aid site. Any additional questions this evening?
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other council comments? If not, we'll open it up. We'll go ahead and take public comment on this item. Not seeing any. We'll go ahead and now take public input on this item.
Seeing no interest, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Board Member Lopez and a second by Vice Chair White. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And now we are ready to take a motion on this resolution.
Sure, I'd move that we adopt resolution 2021-4.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2021-4 and a second by Board Member Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Heyer,
Aye.
Board Member Lopez,
Aye.
Board Member Nadolski,
No.
Board Member Stevens,
Aye.
Board Member Chaburka,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Board Member Nadolski, would you like an opportunity again to reiterate your no vote?
Sure. Yeah. Same reasons I mentioned in the council meeting. Just still had some reservations about the environmental contamination related to the project, but I still do support the project as a whole and have on every vote in the past. So look forward to the project to continue and look forward to continuing to support the project as best I can.
Great. Thank you. We now have reports from the administration, and now it looks like we have the opportunity to hear from Brandon Cooper.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate your time. Let me share this real quick. Okay, so before you tonight is proposed resolution 21-7, which approves and authorizes the executive director of the RDA to execute a pre-development services agreement with JF Wonder Block Partners, which is essentially partner with the Wonder Block project. And so I have just a few slides here that walk us through the timeline, and this is also found in your packet. Janine does a good job consistently laying out some of the context for these types of requests, so I appreciate that. In 2016, you would recall that we took action to purchase the Flower Foods factory, a 4.9 acre site with about 130,000 square foot building on the site. And then a few years after that, we introduced and adopted the Continental CRA, which consists of the hostess site and then the adjacent blocks to the north and to the south. And in that same year, we undertook some abatement and demolition, removing the building and leaving it in its current condition. And then last year, as a board, you approved the land transfer and development agreement. And that comes with some conditions. And those conditions are part of what we're doing, part of what we're considering tonight in the pre-development services agreement. The conditions in the land transfer and development agreement were that there would be a master lease approved potentially in the future that contemplated how we deal with some of the retail spaces in the development, a parking agreement, any TIF that would be associated with the project needed to be worked out as a condition, and also the state property conveyance needed to be worked out. And so those conditions of the LTDA are taking some time. And we don't want to lose momentum, of course, on the project. And so the developer has expended about $1 million of their own pre-development funds to establish what is called a pre-development site plan that has received Planning Commission approval. And that has gotten us to a point where we understand the context of the property, the uses, the sizes, but it doesn't take us all the way to the point where the project can be permitted for construction and actually commence. And so we have this gap between where we are and where we need to be to get the project moving with a permit. As you can assume, the developer was not very excited about expending more money under with no assurances that those four conditions would be met under the LTDA. So what is before you tonight is the result of the strategy of moving forward collectively as a team and making sure that we're utilizing our time well in the pre-development cycle of this project. So what that means is that the agreement in your packet lists out a number of costs, how those costs are going to be paid, how those costs could be financed, and then how the agency would get reimbursement for those costs. So the pre-development costs have been outlined in what's called the pre-development budget. It's part of, you'll see that in the packet as well. And that budget contemplates the cost that would be associated with architects, engineers, designers, other consultants related to the design and permitting of the project. And it's proposed that the agency would pay those pre-development costs, that the developer would contract for them, the agency would pay for them. And that would allow us to move forward and utilize the time that it's going to take to meet the conditions of the LTDA with the master lease and the parking structure and those kind of things. So this will be happening concurrently over the next number of months. Payment would come from the agency to the developer, and they would make those payments to the consultants and sub-consultants. It's proposed that we utilize the funding mechanism that we did on the Rite Aid project, and that was a loan from D.L. Evans Bank secured buy the property. And that loan would allow us to then pay those costs. The loan parameters would be set in terms of what we would be willing to move forward with. So we're looking at a $3 million, up to a $3 million loan. It's based on the valuation of the property in its current condition, and so there's some restrictions there. We would look to not exceed a 7% interest rate. The bank is telling us determine what that would be just yet. We don't have those loan terms ready for you just yet, but I did want to set kind of the context in which they would come. We would look for quarterly payments with a 5-year balloon, interest only. Until then, there would be some fees associated with that loan, but it would be capped at $18,000. And then, as I mentioned, they would record a trust deed against the property until such time that the debt was repaid. We would require that there's a no prepayment penalty, and that there's a no acceleration clause, which is important as it relates to some of the other reporting, financial reporting and bonding that we have done and may potentially otherwise do over that same period. And so once the costs are incurred over this period of time, which will generally range from, if approved tonight, it would range from, this month, probably ongoing until December. And then once those costs are incurred, then the assumption is that we would be able to be in a position to pursue a permit for construction at the end of this year, first of next year. That would also assume that those 4 conditions in the LTDA are met, which is the parking and the master lease and the state property and also the TIF agreement. So there's a lot of work to do in this project, but we felt like that over the next few months we could really double our efforts and ensure that we're not essentially wasting the rest of this year and starting all of this activity sometime in Q1 or Q2 of next year. And I've also included in the packet just a reminder of that pre-development site plan that JF Capital and their team put together in conjunction with city staff. And so if you have any questions or if you need a refresher on the project, here it is. 25th Street is on the top. The district court there is there on the upper right. And this project looks to bring in a number of mixed uses, a hotel, residential units, ample parking, both for the uses on the block and public, a new office space, and a multitude of new retail and commercial options. So that is my proposal tonight, and it's recommended that you all adopt Resolution 21-7. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay. Any comments from council members or any further discussion?
I've got a question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I apologize, Brandon. I had to step away for a minute with the pets, but I don't know if you already covered this, but would you mind reiterating for us how you selected the development partner, JF Wonder Block Partners?
Sure. So you all were introduced to JF Capital, I believe, back in 2019 or 2020 when we brought forward the LTDA, the Land Transfer and Development Agreement. That was the first time outside of just internal staff discussions that the council was made aware of the partnership. And I think to answer that question, it's important, and if I may take just a few minutes to build some context, I think it's important to understand the ways in which we go about these types of projects. For those of you who have been around the RDA law for some time, you'll probably realize that the RDA statute 17C was specifically enacted to allow municipalities and political subdivisions to do things that are different than how they are required to be done within the city governance. It was an alternative to working under the city umbrella. And so the procurement of developers and goods and services within the RDA and the disposal of land is totally different in the RDA than it is in the city. In fact, the RDA is exempt to do. So with that being said, there's really three ways that any project is undertaken with a private partner, any project that the RDA would initiate. The first one is public solicitation. I think that's fairly straightforward. That comes in the form of an RFP, request for proposal, request for bid, request for qualifications. There could be a listing of some kind, a notification, something that allows a broad response. These are generally assigned to projects that are fully known, fully scoped projects. We've done a number of these, even in the RDA. The city does more of these, but we've done a number of these in the RDA. 30th Street, if you're familiar with that project on the Art Deco house, I know Bart is intimately familiar with that one. But that project, we did an RFP for and solicited some interest there. We do most of our construction and demolition activities through RFP or RFB, which is a request for bid. The Swift building was done through an RFB or an RFP process. So we do a number of those things as we select our partners for our development projects. The second process in which we use to acquire partners is direct negotiation. And this one is more common and again allowed for in the RDA and I would argue specifically created for this purpose. So direct negotiation allows the agency to do just that, directly negotiate with partners that it wants to do business with. And this can come in the way of referrals to the RDA. And in the case of Wonderblock, to answer your question, Angela, specifically, JF Capital was introduced to us through a referral. And as we discussed the project and other available projects in the city with them and gauged their capacity and interest in the city, then that relationship developed. We've done direct negotiation through just direct contacts where either the developer reaches out to us or we reach out to them, or the owner of a property does the same thing. We do direct negotiation when we put out RDA project area plans. We know what generally we want to have take place in those project areas. And so we sometimes reach out to the parties that we feel would generate the best outcome in that situation. We also do direct negotiation with government to government. UTA is a good example of that. We're doing some things with them right now at the Union Station. So that's the second category of engagement, direct negotiation. The third one is unsolicited proposals. And again, pretty self-explanatory. That generally comes in the form of contacts from interested parties. So people who are calling us saying, we're interested in investing into your community. Please guide us to projects that fit our portfolio profile or something like that. The River Project is a good example of this. We've had a number of unsolicited proposals come to us there, and those projects are underway with Lotus and with the Meadows and those kind of things, Gibson Grove. I don't know if you remember Quality Bikes, but they came to us and said, we'd like to engage with you on a project on your property. So we did that. The airport is another good example for Cineas Medical. So those are things that I can think of off the top of my head. But I know this is a really long answer, but I wanted to give you a little bit more comprehensive answer, because this is something that's been talked about as long as I've been at the city. And it's been something that we have looked at perfecting over time. But I wanted to put it in the context that the RDA does and is allowing for all three of these options. And as a board, it's really the policies of the agency to determine if one of these or none of these are workable when it comes to the goals and the objectives of the agency. And I think that I think the fruits of our labor are evident. Ogden's growing at a faster rate than it ever has. And not only that, it's not just measured in growth, but it's measured in quality, and it's measured in the outcomes and outputs of the projects that we undertake together with private investors. So that's a long answer. Specifically with Wonderblock, it was direct negotiation via a referral.
I really appreciate that answer. I mean, that's been my understanding of these different aspects. I guess I never really understood the unsolicited proposals element. I hadn't really thought about that as another way that we, worked on these agreements. So I appreciate you pointing that out. I think, in light of I don't know if it's always been recent. As you said, we're always continuing this conversation around this process. And so I know that we discussed a little bit about how to make it more transparent in the future in some way. And I don't know if you've had more time to think about that, I know that we talked about the RFP process as one possibility, to make it more of a mandate, but I'm not sure how other board members feel about that. So I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, like I said, we've thought about this for my, almost 14 years, how to do things effectively, efficiently, how to produce the very best outcome for the city. And so to me, there is no blanket solution for anything. As I mentioned, it's very difficult with the resources that we have with the city to RFP a project that's completely undefined, say trackline, for instance. How do you take a 51-acre stockyard and that requires a $6 million investment, cash investment from an investor, and a huge environmental risk, and how do you RFP that? So, but I think in my mind, it's a good, better, best scenario. I think the things that we are doing now, again, are really good, and in some cases, the very best. But does that mean that there are things that can be that can't be improved on? No, I think we can always be aware of our market. Right now, we are receiving a tremendous amount of unsolicited proposals, right? So this is going to fluctuate over time. And right now, there's a great interest in Ogden for a lot of reasons. And so we can think about how do we really make that process efficient and effective, both for the city staff and for the development partners who are coming into the city. But yield outcomes that are going to be important to people. And so I think we need to really describe what those are. In the cases that we're doing just good or better, then I think that we can improve on some of those things. But it's always going to fluctuate based on market conditions and where we are as a city. And I think it's important that whatever policies we create over time, we make them flexible enough to achieve our objectives. I think that we're always interested in working with the agency on policies to make us better together. I know that, again, this conversation's kind of been hit and miss ongoing for a number of years. If the board feels like it's necessary to kind of resurrect this conversation in earnest, then I think that's something that my staff is willing to take a look at and work together with the board on trying to figure out.
Thanks again, Brandon. I'm not sure if there's other board members that are interested in that.
I certainly am, Board Member Chaburka, and appreciate the long answer, Brandon, because it's an important answer. I do believe there's more we can do for transparency. I think that's always going to be a good thing, and it's something we should always strive to do better at. And but I do agree with you too that, you know, I don't want to pigeonhole us or, you know, force us to always take the highest cash offer or something like that. In my experience, the projects that we consider from on the RDA side have a lot more to do with just the amount of money that we receive or give out. It really has a lot to do with the ultimate outcome for that project and what we're really trying to achieve. And for me, you know, sometimes that costs us a little more money because we have really tight, you know, sort of stipulations for something. But to me, that's really where a lot of value in our negotiations with the RDA come from, is being able to get the outcome that we're really looking for specifically, that we can really put our best foot forward for that space, because once we make those decisions, they are certainly long-term decisions. But more at the RDA level and with your staff, if you're willing, I think that whatever policy comes out does need to be flexible and reasonable, but also with an eye toward, you know, just improving transparency and hopefully getting better outcomes for the city.
I absolutely agree. You know, and I think that is exactly why the RDA was created, is to maximize that value. Generally speaking, procurement through the city processes are oriented to obtaining the lowest bid or things like that. And when we are engaging private developers with RDA projects, you know, it's not the nice widget that sometimes a road project could be, or the installation of a water line, where you're looking to get a response to a predefined scope at the lowest price. It's not that easy. And I think the state legislature recognized that decades ago, and hence we have the law that we have with the RDA. But I am encouraged by the results that we're seeing, and as things change, I think we need to change with them.
Chair?
Yes, please.
I have a question, Brandon. I know this Wonder Bread project is a large project for us, and there are several projects that are coming online that are very important to us. And I like the discussion that we had with Councilmember Chaburka and also Ben. I would be interested in looking into more transparency and looking at that. But in order to do that, could you give us some idea of what JF Capital, can you tell us their background? Can you tell us if they're financially sound, or have they done projects in the city? What stood out from this company versus other companies that probably made a request for this project?
That's a good question. So I think one of the projects that you're probably going to be most familiar with is a townhome project that was just recently completed up by Shadow Valley Drive, Harrison Boulevard and Shadow Valley Drive. It is a white and blue project. As you drive on Harrison Boulevard, you see that on the east side. That's a multi-unit townhome project that was done without city incentive, and I believe is doing very well, especially with Weber State students. JF Capital's office is in Centerville, and they have a number of different companies. Obviously, there's a capital creation company, JF Capital, but they also own Henry Walker Homes. They own Strategic Builders, so they have an internally serviced construction company. so those are some of the things that are of interest to us, because that vertical alignment really brings efficiency to a project. When you have the construction guys who are going to be building the building sitting right across the hallway from your finance guys who are scoping the project and building the capital stack, then you're really able to bring efficiencies to the project that a traditional delivery method just can't do. I could run down a list of projects that JF Capital has done in Salt Lake City, up and down the Wasatch Front. I believe they have projects in Boise, potentially Colorado. And so we are very excited about their capacity and potential. They're well respected in the industry from some of the investigation that we have done. And most importantly, they have the willingness and the capacity and the capability to perform the vision that we have. And that's one of the most important things. I think the difference between Ogden City and maybe some other communities across the Wasatch Front is that we have a very clear vision of collectively, from the council priorities to the administration strategies to the Make Ogden plan. When we undertake a project like Wonder Block, we're not taking it down and then asking the development community what they want to do with it. We are taking it down for very specific reasons, and we have a very clear vision. And so we're looking for partners who share that vision and are willing to take the risk on a project that generally doesn't pencil at the onset. Most of our projects are a lot about incentives. And so these developers not only need to share our enthusiasm about the project, but they need to have the risk capacity to undertake something that might not produce the yields that they're used to in other communities.
Okay. But we do have developers come in and they're not financially sound, and sooner or later they don't develop. You don't need to divulge their bottom line, but is JF Capital, are they financially sound?
Yes.
Okay.
Just for the record, I'm also interested in reviewing this process. I had asked via printed communications already a couple of weeks ago, and I was informed that this was already being considered by the administration, by probably Brandon. And so I know that this is not a small task, but I think that it's important, and I think that it will be good to have the conversation. So just adding my voice to the my colleagues who are interested in taking a look at this and see what we can do to improve the process.
I want to thank everyone for indulging me in this conversation. Now, I apologize I wasn't able to attend the work session last week, and so that's where I would have had the conversation, but thank you.
Thank you to everyone. Any other questions for Brandon or discussion amongst other council members on this item? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Chair, I propose that we adopt Resolution 2021-7.
And I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair White to adopt proposed Resolution 2021-7 and a second by Board Member Chaburka. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Lopez,
Aye.
Board Member Dodowski,
Aye.
Board Member Stevens,
Aye.
Board Member Chaburka,
Aye.
Board Member Heyer,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair,
Aye, thank you. That passes. Next up is the 4C real estate purchase contract assignment. And again, we have Brandon Cooper here.
Okay, that kind of worked. Let me try that again. So we have talked at length about this both in the work session and in both the RDA meeting and the city council meeting with the budget openings. And so I'll go through this quickly. You've seen this before. Here's an orientation of the site, the old Rite Aid site, 24th on the top, 25th on the bottom, Monroe to Quincy, east and west. And we've been undertaking this project for a number of years. It's one of our quality neighborhoods project. It has seen significant investment since 2015 when we started taking down some of the original properties, the Rite Aid and the old Wheelwright Lumber Center. And shortly after that, we looked to bring a Walmart in. In fact, that was one of those unsolicited proposal type of engagements where Walmart came to us and looked to build one of their neighborhood markets and then ended up actually not approving their own proposal. And so we moved on from that with site design through 2017, 18, and 19, and have never quite nailed what we feel is appropriate for the neighborhood. But in the meantime, we've been working to continue to buy up some of the properties that we think are necessary to make the property, to make the project work. And so we're picked up the Wake Up Sense project. That's an old commercial building. I believe it's been a 7-Eleven, maybe some other things. We also then picked up a residential house, and we refinanced our initial expenditure of the Wheelwright and Rite Aid property into a new loan with DL Evans Bank, which we're currently paying on now. In 2020, we picked up the Boney property, which is another residential home there on Monroe. And now we're talking about the 4C laundry, which is critical to this south eastern corner. And so there's the full assemblage of all the parcels. You'll see that the McGregor apartments on the bottom left would stay. There are 2 single-family homes on 25th Street. They're called Foursquare, so they're sister homes. Very nice from an architectural standpoint. One is nicer than the other. We hope to see those stay. The commercial building on the upper right is a well-maintained and newer building, and so we didn't pursue the acquisition there. That purchase price was fairly extensive. This is the old 7-Eleven, and they are working with us to incorporate their store into the new development, and so we're encouraged by that. This is what we have been tooling with right now in terms of the latest development plan. You can see that we are using the extension of Capitol Street to bring some order to the site and to sequence the block a little bit. It also provides a connection through the Oasis Garden into Lester Park, as you see here. And we feel like that's a wonderful amenity for not only the project, but for the community. And we're working with the Junior League and some others on seeing if that Oasis Park connection or Oasis Garden connection could be feasible. Anyway, there's a number of uses here. Apartment units, 3 to 4 story building there. There'd be some condominiums that would be for sale units. There would also be some townhomes and some other different types of attached, single family attached. We're looking at potentially mansion homes. This site plan is in flux because we are looking at the potential of a grocer coming on back onto the site. So we're not quite sure if that grocer is going to happen in the northwest corner or the southeast corner. So this is still in flux a bit. You can see the 2 4-square homes at the bottom with the McGregor there. We're trying to work around them. So we're getting really close to a site plan that we feel like can be subjected to public input through the East Central Community Plan revision process and also through the RDA process, which we hope will be undertaken here soon. So here's kind of just a snapshot of everything that I've just said in terms of our activity since 2015. It's been extensive. This project is a major target for us. It's almost dead central in the to the city in terms of that eastern neighborhood. Historically, it's provided a number of different types of uses, commercial and otherwise. And so we want to make sure we still keep a mixed use flavor and still provide some services to that community. You've heard me say that our housing strategy is simply put as facilitating a spectrum of different housing types across a broad spectrum at a variety of different price points. And I think we can encapsulate that on a block level here with this project. We're working on having these apartments be affordable apartments, meaning that these would be income restricted apartments, and that would provide some affordability on the block, where some of these other townhomes and condos could be at market rates. And so we really want to make sure that we have a balance of price points and a balance of product types all within the same block, with some amenities that would allow you to go outside, walk your dog, play with your kids, get a coffee or an ice cream, all within the same neighborhood. And so to do that, we are looking at this, not last purchase, but one of the last purchases needed on the block. It's the 4C Laundry, as we've of the purchase contract, which would be assigned to us from the developer, is $460,000. Of that, $30,000 has been paid in earnest money. There'd be roughly about $25,000 in closing costs. So the balance of closing in which we would produce is about $445,000. We did talk about this project being an old dry cleaner. It's a laundromat now. It hasn't been a dry cleaner since the 80s. It's a laundromat now. But sometime between then and now, there was a release of 2 chemicals associated with dry cleaning. They're solvents, TCE and PCE. I'm not going to pretend that I know how to pronounce the technical names, but they're regulated chemicals. And as I've mentioned in the work session and in other places, we have done a significant amount of sampling to try to assess the extent of the risk as a new owner of the property. And we have determined, based on the samples that we've taken over the course of a few months, that there is the presence of both PCE and TCE above the allowable thresholds. And so there would need to be certain things that would need to take place to mitigate those things. And that would include some institutional controls. Let me get to the recommendations here. So here's the recommendations from our consultant. It would include institutional controls, which means that access to the groundwater and the soil at certain depths would be prohibited. And if such activity took place, it would have to be done through the oversight of the state. There would need to be some excavation of the source material, and there would also need to be some vapor barriers and some monitoring. We feel like that right now the plume is about 80 to 100 feet wide and 400 feet long from the laundromat up to Monroe. You heard the city attorney talk about what assurances that we could have to protect our liability. And really the very best thing that the state and federal law allows for is this enforceable written assurance letter. It establishes that we are an eligible bona fide prospective purchaser, that we are not potentially liable or affiliated with any other person that might be potentially liable, that we don't have any direct relationship with those parties, and that we will comply with the voluntary cleanup program and the steps that are required to do the cleanup as I described. And so we feel like this is our very best option when it comes to protecting ourselves from any liability that might reach down to other owners of the property, including the owner of the actual dry cleaner back in the 80s who potentially was the source of this contamination. And so with that, we feel comfortable moving forward and expending the time and resources necessary to assemble the property into the larger project, do the necessary steps that the state requires to protect the health and safety of the public, clean up the area surrounding the property, and then move forward with our desirable development. So that is the presentation on the 4C. And again, it's recommended that you all adopt Resolution 2021-8.
Thank you, Brandon. Any questions for Brandon? If not, is there any future or any further discussion on this item?
I just have a quick comment, and I think, I really love the design, current state right now, I should say, of the Rite Aid block, with the mixed use of different kinds of living situations, et cetera. So, although I'm not super excited about buying this property, it's all part of the larger plan, and I am concerned about the risk. But, I just want to make that comment. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that's going into that development area, and I'm excited to get community feedback about it as well.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes, please.
I've been around long enough that I know, Brandon, you're going to bring back another plan sometime down the road because I've seen where we had wall. But let me just mention something. This project has the capacity to impact positively the neighborhood and the city center of Ogden. We will get more positive entity from this project than than any other project that we can look at. If we want to change the scope of this neighborhood, the scope of neighborhoods around it, the scope of the center part of the city, this is the project that will do that for us. And so I ask for the support of this project. We may not want to buy that laundromat, but that has to be part of the project. We can't build around that. We've got to take care of that project, and we have to include that into our operation of this program.
Thank you.
Chair, with that, I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2021-8.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Meyer to adopt proposed Resolution 2021-8 and a second by Board Member Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Nadolski?
No.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member Chaburka?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Lopez?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye, thank you. That passes. Board Member Nadolski, would you like a minute?
Just for the same rationale I mentioned earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the Bot Pantone Participation Agreement. And for the trifecta, we have Brandon Cooper one more time.
Thank you very much. This one is relatively straightforward. So before you is Resolution 2021-9, which authorizes the executive director to execute a participation and incentive agreement with the Bot Pantone architecture folks. They're currently a local business up on 24th Street. They've actually done a number of things for us from an architecture standpoint. And so when they were looking to move out of their old and cramped building, they wanted to buy something downtown, and to give them presence downtown. They felt like there was a little bit of prestige with that, but also to give them some expansion room. And so they looked at what's called the Lohmueller building. That's what in our brains it's been known as, but it's 333 24th Street. So this map shows it here on the left. It's sandwiched in between the Berthana building and the Kiesel building on 24th Street. And you might recognize it from its north-facing facade there on the right. And the request is pretty simple. It's part of the Kiesel Community Development Project Area that was established in 2015 by you folks as the RDA board. And it was specifically created for this very thing, to facilitate and support the redevelopment and occupancy of some of these vacant buildings. At the time, the Kiesel building was vacant, the Lohmueller building was vacant, the Berthana was vacant, the Hearst building was vacant, the post office was partially vacant. Going down Grant on the north end, the Thorstensen building was vacant, and the Proudfit building was vacant. Those are some of our most significantly contributing historic buildings in the downtown. They're all clustered next to each other, and they were all largely vacant. Well, since 2015, none of those buildings are vacant now. There's only a couple that are partially vacant, but partially occupied. And the Lohmueller building is really the last remaining target on the block. And so Bot Pantone has requested that we provide some assistance in the form of tax increment out of the Kiesel Community Development Project area. There is fund balance in this project area. That doesn't happen in every single one, but in this one, it happens to be the case. That means that the project area is generating more revenue through tax increment than what the agency has committed. And that's by design. We're hoping to use some of that money for other things, but certainly this is an eligible use. And we only have one other financial commitment in that area, so there's capacity there. They're looking for $25,000. This would be a one-time payment, so it's a little bit different than other participation agreements that you might be familiar with, where this payment would happen one-time lump sum in a cash payment instead of over time as typical tax increment payments happen. It is conditioned upon a couple of things. One would be their substantial completion of their improvements. So they would be doing some exterior remodeling. They would do extensive interior remodeling. And most importantly, they would be using this money to upgrade some of the infrastructure that has been lacking and what has really contributed to the vacancy of the building over time. It just does not have sufficient infrastructure to support commercial occupancy. And so they would need to be complete by September of 30 and, August 30, with a payment then of $25,000 by September 30. And then that would conclude the deal. There would be no other commitments by the agency to the developer, and they would occupy the building. And based on their estimates of construction and our tax increment calculations, it would take roughly 3 years to recover this money back into the fund based on their new improvements. So we feel like there's good ROI here, and we're doing it for the assistance of a local business, which is great as well. So that concludes my presentation. And again, we strongly recommend that you approve Resolution 2021-9. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Any questions for Brandon? If not, is there any further discussion on this item?
Brandon, I'm just curious, did they already own the building, or what stage are they in? Because I've seen that building in different stages of, I guess, restoration or development.
No, they were in the process of purchasing the building. They might have closed by now, I'm not sure. But the renovations that you might have seen are now, wow, they're quite a number of years old. There was a new face put on the building by the existing owner, but that might have been maybe 7 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was curious just what stage it was in.
Yeah, the outside looks pretty good. I think they're going to make some changes based on what I saw in the Planning Commission submittal. But the interior was totally gutted and completely vacant.
Yeah, I like that building a lot.
Chair, I'll make a motion then that we adopt Resolution 2021-9.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2021-9 by Board Member Meyer and a second by Board Member Chaburka. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member Chaburka?
Aye.
Board Member Meyer?
Aye.
Board Member Lopez?
Aye.
Board Member Dodolsky?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Next up is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. The board encourages civil discourse for everyone who participates in our meetings. And as mentioned earlier, questions posed during public comment will be noted and answered at the end of all public comments. If the board has the answers to the questions, the board will respond to those questions. For questions that relate to administrative matters, the mayor may choose to respond to those during his comment period. With that being said, we will go ahead and begin. First up, just making sure that Brandon is ready for the public comment period. I believe he is. With that being said, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Angel Castillo, sorry.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I'm all about public-private partnerships. They're a great idea. One of the greatest public-private partnerships in the nation is Central Park. And we have an amazing public-private partnership right here in Ogden called the BDO. And regardless of whatever you thought of Mayor Godfrey, he was a genius for bringing that on board. And the thing that I have a problem with the Wonder Block development is that there is not an equal shared risk. We spent $2.1 million to purchase. We're going to be on the hook for $3 million. That's a potential spend of $5 million with this loan. And we're responsible for 70% approximately of the building leases because that's not decided on yet. That is a cash value to it. And the developer to date has spent $1 million. And that is completely imbalanced. The national award-winning planner, Chuck Marone from Strong Towns, says that there are 4 things important in a public-private partnership. That's limited and quantifiable risk, mutual skin in the game, realistic chance for positive return, and a proportionate share in the profits. And if you don't meet all of those, it's essentially a public handout by a different name. You voted yes to a severely imbalanced public-private partnership with the Wonder Block. And again, I'm not against public-private partnerships, but we really need to be taking a look at why we are shouldering the burden of most of the risk. I mean, Ogden is no longer the awkward and gawky teenager with braces that no one asks to dance. We don't have to do this. And as council members and as RDA members, everybody agreed to be conservative with the budget and contract by almost $7 million because of an uncertainty time. Why are you leading out with such an imbalanced risk in a time where there's so much uncertainty and that things are going to change? And how can you get on board with an almost $3 million loan, not knowing exactly what the percentage of leases you're going to be responsible to pay for? It just doesn't make sense to me. And I really appreciate everybody's concern for transparency. I'm glad you're actually talking about that, considering you put it in every single budget that's a leading goal. And we can have the best and highest outcomes for development by putting together a pre-qualified pool, by having a bid process that weights certain developers as more qualified than others. For example, people that have historical development experience. That's a very special animal. And you can put together a pre-qualified developer pool period for 2 years. Other cities do this all across the nation. And if you don't have this process where we're going to have weighted bids, how are you ever going to be equitable with minority and women-owned businesses and making sure that those are weighted in the process? Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Okay, next up we have Heath Sato. Go ahead, Heath. The time is now yours.
Hi, Heath, Ogden resident. I appreciate council members Chaburka, Nadolski, Stevens, and Lopez for addressing my question regarding how developers are chosen in secret by the administration and asking for a more transparent process. I've been asking for a long time, and I'm glad it's starting to have an impact. But the bottom line that I want to be sure stays at the forefront is that we still don't have any real policies about selecting developers, and I hope that's part of future discussions. Regarding Wonderblock, there's still no light on how the developer was actually chosen for direct negotiation, how they were actually selected. Mr. Cooper said a lot, but honestly didn't answer much. I understand what the RDA allows. That's the problem. It allows developers to be selected in secret. Regarding this direct negotiation Mr. Cooper spoke of, who referred JF Capital to the city? Who makes the choices for these direct contacts? Why hasn't this process been more transparent? Other cities have far more transparent processes. Why don't we? We can't just accept that this is how we've always done it. We're a real city with a hot real estate market, and we need to not have these massive decision processes happening in secret by just a few individuals. How many of you can say after Brandon Cooper's explanation how specifically JF Capital was selected to directly negotiate with them? Who is the connection? Who decided to directly negotiate with JF Capital? What's the connection here that they ended up being the developers for such a huge part of our city all at once? We learned that they're well connected, but that's about it. We need a more open process, and thank you for finally addressing this. Mr. Cooper said that they've thought about this process for 14 years, but it's still completely opaque after all these years. Cooper said JF Capital has the capacity to do all this and are financially sound, but they've asked us to take on the liability of the dry cleaning building at one site and give them basically a free $3 million loan to get started on another. And could someone please ask Mr. Cooper if he lied or was lied to about the Brown ice cream building when he presented the value of that building and how it was marketed? It matters since he is presenting hundreds of millions of dollars of development to you. If he's misleading you, that's a problem. If he's being misled, that's a problem too. And I'll look forward to the mayor addressing my comments by talking about football. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands raised, we'll move on to comments from the executive director.
Well, just say that was nice that I got punted and completely discounted for everything that's been said for the last little bit. But I do feel we have a transparent process, and economic development is a very dynamic process, and I appreciate what our guys and women in our CED department have done. And I stand behind them, and we will stand up to that kind of scrutiny. It's been my honor to work with them. And so hate to say I'm discounting him to say I'm going to talk about football and everything else, I find that offensive. And that's okay. That's part of the process for all of this. And I really appreciate Brandon Cooper and the effort that's gone into this, and all of those that have spent years and years and years working on this. So I stand up to them and appreciate their amazing work ethic and everything else they put forth to this. Ogden City, when I grew up here, just to get on the soapbox a little bit, was not what it is now. And I agree with some of the comments that, yeah, we have a thriving real estate market. We have a thriving economic development community. We have a lot of things going on, and that's in credit to our CED group and the people that have been working on that. It's not a credit to the critics and some of the others that want to look at everything else that's going on and just poke holes in it. I really believe in the efforts that are going on here, and that's something I'll absolutely stand tall for and appreciate. They work harder than any other group I've ever been with in my professional career, and I really appreciate that. And so, yeah, I could get into the weeds for some of that, and we've always tried hard to do private and public partnerships and a lot of other things. And sometimes that's not super crystal clear. And we're competing with every community along the Wasatch Front, not just along the Wasatch Front, but in the Western United States. And sometimes it just takes some creativity and some time to figure that out and to bring people in and to find partnerships. And that's years in the making. It's not just a phone call or two or an RFP that goes out that people respond to. So I am very appreciative of our community and economic development department and the pick and shovel work they've done to get us to this point. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. This happens because of years and years of diligent effort and pick and shovel work, which I think doesn't get recognized a lot. And I just want to say I appreciate their efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Comments from board members?
I'd like to make some comments, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Hey, Chair, before we get into council member, we do have a hand in the participants that we didn't get to, it looks like. I don't know if you want to take them or not.
Yeah, we can go ahead and take Anna Cash.
Sorry, Ben.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
It's okay. Anna should always be before me. So
yeah. Okay, Anna Cash, welcome, and the time is now yours.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I apologize for the late raising of my hand. I thought there would be more people commenting, so I was like, oh, wait, my turn. So I just wanted to jump on this meeting really quickly to address some of the issues that we're having on 12th Street regarding the 12th Street overlay in our area. I feel like we as a community have been burdened with a lot of this high density housing that's going in, and we are due, I feel like we are one of the second oldest community plans for Ogden. And we did talk with some members of the Planning Commission about what it would take to look at that and address some of the issues that are happening on that 12th Street. And Greg, I believe it was Greg Mortensen, said that we weren't up until next year to look at our community plan, which is really frustrating because in the last 2 years, we've now had over, I want to say there's 500 apartments or townhomes that are due or have been built from Monroe to the mouth of the canyon. And that feels very disproportionate to other neighborhoods in Ogden City. So Yeah, thank you so much. That's all I had to say tonight. I agree with some of Angel's comments about us being a little bit better with development in Ogden City as far as really asking more of the developers to put skin in the game. So, yep, I'm just catching the tail end of this meeting. So thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks for that, Board Member Heyer. And now we'll get to Board Member Nadolski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Board Member Heyer, for the catch. So I just want to say that, speaking for me, but I think a number of others on the council and in the administration have made every effort to reach out to those who are critiquing our decisions and our process on all manner of things, but especially those that they're critiquing lately. And I, for one, am very comfortable with the decisions that we're making because I'm answering to my own conscience. And I ask the questions that I need in order to answer to my conscience, and that's that. I listen to public input. I weigh that with my conscience and the reactions that I think are necessary. And then I inform myself and I make a decision. And in so doing, I'm very comfortable with what we've decided to do. I'm not going to ever claim that we've been perfect in the past, that's for sure. I'm not going to claim that anybody in the administrative side or the council side is perfect, but I can tell you that there's been a lot of greatness on both sides on behalf of this community. And there's a huge difference between imperfection or misunderstanding or just plain not wanting to understand and coming week after week and calling somebody a liar or a crook. I'm just not okay with it. And I just want my council members and peers to know, and in the administration and the council, that I make decisions and based on my own conscience, and I reflect on the things that I hear from others as I do that. But I'm just kind of tired of nothing ever being good enough for some, and that I am still, with that said, anxious to move forward with the most transparency that we can. And I always want to make sure that we get the best outcomes for Ogden that we can. And I know that that's what everybody here on this council and this administration want. So that's my intention. And sorry, one more thing, football.
Thanks, Board Member Nadolski. Well said. Any other comments from board members?
Chair, if you don't mind, I'll be really fast, I promise. I just wanted to again thank Brandon for, entertaining my questions this evening and having conversations with me during the week about how maybe sometimes when I'm communicating, what I'm saying is not coming across the way I think it is. And we all have that problem sometimes. And I think just to kind of, piggyback on Board Member Nadolski's comments, I think I just want to explain that, I'm in my job and my life, I'm constantly critical of things that are going on to help to create the best outcomes. And so I think, this is no exception in my role as a board member or council member, that I always look at things through a lens of how can we make them better. And so I don't want anybody to feel like I'm personally attacking them in any way or, doing some kind of personal assault when I ask questions or when I want to try to create a process that's better that, some community members are asking for and that I think are right. So I just wanted to kind of clear the air around that I'm always going to ask the questions about, transparency or are we doing things the right way? And this is just because this is how I look at the world. And it's not a great way to always look at the world, but I do it from a sense of trying to make things better, not to make it personal or cause friction needlessly, I guess. So that's all.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to add. I just want to add a little bit, basically piggyback and echo on the comments from Councilmember Nadolski. We are not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And these jobs that we have are very hard. I think they are the toughest jobs anywhere. Being in this position of elected officials. And I believe that we're all trying to do the best we can. And I think that in my 23, maybe 24 years that I've been in Ogden, I came to Ogden when Ogden was a bit of a ghost town. And I've been so fortunate to have been through the transformation of Ogden, the Renaissance. And that's happened under, as far as back as I can remember, it's happened under two administrations, under the Godfrey administration and now under the Caldwell administration. And I believe that, seriously believe that this council takes our role of checks and balances very, very seriously. And I think we show that diligently. And so we are never going to achieve perfection. But I am very grateful and thankful for the relationship that we have with the administration, where we keep each other in check. We work together. We have disagreements. Sometimes we have arguments. Sometimes we have confrontations. Sometimes they're strong. But at the end of the day, I believe that there's been some really, really great work done. Very, very great. And I think our community sees that. So I respect everyone's opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. But I just wanted to agree also with the same sentiment that the way that the accusations are being done and are being carried and are being presented, to me is a little excessive. And you know, just for the record. So thank you. And that's all.
Chair?
Yes, please.
I'd just like to make comment on Anna's and tell her that I support her comments about the high density. I've been talking about that for some time, and I too are concerned about the amount of development that is being produced and built from Monroe up to the mouth of the canyon, even down from Washington to the mouth of the canyon. And that's why I suggested that we need a plan of housing so that we can control some of those processes there. I want to thank our council members and for their support in doing the Rite Aid project there, in developing and going through and buying that dry cleaners. I think that over the many years, and in fact in the decades, that's going to have a positive impact into that community, as I stated before. If we look at the Wonder Bed project, we could go back to Brandon's report when he first came and reported the Wonder Bed project to us. He outlined the potential of the value of that project. And that potential is far greater than what we discussed here today. I was watching a movie the other day, and one of the guys got up and says, you know, you've got to spend money to make money. Well, if we spend money in the city, we do it right, hopefully. And I want to thank Brandon and Tom and our CED department for looking after the interest of Ogden City. They're not looking after the interest of them themselves, but the interest of Ogden. And I don't think they lie to us. I don't think they are doing deals. That's just not what these individuals are. Their interest is the interest of Ogden and how they can improve and how they can add value to our city. And that's exactly what they're doing. So, council members, I want to thank you for approving and helping out for the development of that Rite Aid project. That's going to be a real gem for us into the future, and I thank you for it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Board Member Stevens, and all other board members that have spoken. Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, Chair, I just, as far as the civility that we've been talking about, in chambers, there's a statement underneath the glass where we, at the dais there, that talks about it's inappropriate to make personally disparaging comments about someone. I think we need to make sure that carries on in our virtual meetings as well. I think, we as council members, as a representative form of government, which is what we have, we are asking the questions and we are getting answers. And it's pretty apparent that we've been satisfied with the dialogue and the information that we've been getting. And I guess I just don't understand why we continue to get second guessed all the time. So, but I think the civility, and it's okay if people question us. I don't think there's a problem with that. But becoming, personally disparaging, that's where they kind of cross the line.
Thank you. Yeah, well said. I just wanted to add or echo the comments that have been made and thank each of you for the work that you do and for the diligence in which you carry out your duties. As chair, I get to talk with you and meet with you and I'm blown away at all the things and all the extra efforts that you all take to make sure that you're doing your job to the best of your abilities. And I just want to let you all know that I am in awe of the work that you do, and I'm in awe of the hours that the administration and those in the CED department that they put in to better our city. I echo the comments from the mayor that I know that people that work for Ogden City work harder than just about anyone that I've ever seen in this setting. And I appreciate the efforts that they put in on our behalf and for the citizens' behalf. And as most of you know, last week I had a birthday, and I have some friends that don't live in Ogden City. And in years past, it was always, hey, come down to here and we'll celebrate your birthday. But this year, it was really fun. They all wanted to come to Ogden, and they were blown away. And I was blown away as we sat in dinner to hear about how many times they come up by themselves. And it's neat to see the things that are happening in Ogden. And like the mayor said, and like you board members have suggested, that's not a credit to one person, and it's not a credit to one decision we've made. It's a credit to a team. It's a credit to us and the administration working together, and it's a credit to us all doing our jobs and doing them to the best of our abilities. And now things are starting to roll, and hopefully we can take that momentum and continue to build on it, because that's what we had envisioned 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago when this all started. And I appreciate the efforts that have been made, and I just hope that we continue to do what we've been doing. Sure, there's always a chance and there's always an opportunity to make improvements, and we'll do those as those opportunities come up. But I appreciate everything that's been done, and I love being from Ogden. I love being in Ogden, and I love seeing where Ogden is going, and I appreciate all the work that's been done to make that happen. So thank you to so many.
Chair, motion to adjourn.
That would be great.
Okay. Sorry.
No, second. We heard it.
No.
Second.
Too late.
You'll have to
Post
say
after 9.
This is really very fast. I was just going to say, Mayor, somebody needs to talk to Velo Airlines because their website doesn't work.
It's back up. It's back up. It's back up.
Back up?
It's back. It's working now.
It is?
Yep.
Okay, I've been checking like every day and it doesn't work. So
I admit it was down last week, but it's
okay.
It's working
Cool.
now.
I got the
Cool,
note.
right on.
We'll look into that tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn by Board Member Heyer and a second by just about everyone, but we'll give it to Vice Chair White. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.